Panel's good.
Yeah.
Advantage towards warming the window for avoiding climate catastrophe is closing. The only way to avert tipping point fast enough is U.S. border adjusted carbon tax. Home and warning instead of 30 implement formation change to avoid catastrophic warming. The only way to take formation action to carbon tax with the border adjustment Friday repay for tax banning the U.S. border products tax border tax are preferable because rights 20 punches apply only in the U.S. They will not shoot American companies from low price imports companies have been required to report emissions. Organization of report methodologies out of emissions false. So fuels have been measured colors for extensive analysis emission changes levels in the U.S. and Nevada can be determined using well established standards that taxes you see the municipal to the right posting option taxes can be consistent with the WTO rules because tax can be rated because export companies will not be added disadvantage actions must be taken quickly to pass away to get reductions in emissions at home oxidation leakage and committed to the border adjusted carbon tax climate change compensation camp 23 each mass station of all climatic change extinction to confluence of all body systems transform field human journey process of complex large-scale relationship climate is covered by ocean depletion by sphere integrity ocean acidification pressure water use land and says no change each boundaries lead to differences that could be pushed into instability risk comes not from the station but changes but human responses risk could cascade a large amounts of warming may not be needed to trigger catastrophe risk cascades exist under fog of uncertainty climate change can worsen and trigger conflicts and escalates new and existing hotspots or even 24 the climate change might also get environment in the hottest places where hotter countries see rise with failure speed of fight for water or rare minerals they could migrate to resources border governance economic hardship and neighboring conflicts spill over future climate impacts which call other conflict drivers climate change could worsen conflict in a way that must exist but also capture climate change adds an element of uncertainty. Ocean acidification destroys biodiversity. So policy 19 the ocean is dying and taking us with the ocean acidification. Speed is the most rapid change in ocean chemistry. Zooplankton cancer for disruptions that affect million threats could cause a downward effect. This disrupts the ability to feed Earth. Acidification poses existential threat to the ocean. Humans unless the tide turns soon, life will be no more. That threat is mass ocean extinction emissions reductions now. Sol Penducia 22 and her emissions extinction risk. Rebel past mass extinction limited warming to 2 degrees Celsius. But because severity of extinction by less than 70% vulnerable regions are also home dominated of the world. The world's most productive fisheries. The global extinction risk is greater for polar species. The impact celebrating climate change is driving extinction risk, higher ocean acidification to planning productivity and provide these losses. However, it is not too late reduction in emissions. Avoiding major extinction event. Every fraction of a degree matters. Variations of just the 10th result and saving millions. Working 24. How long? The temperature exceeds 1.5% important. All hope is not lost in the increase of temperatures by 2 degrees. This would trigger irreversible tipping points. Rapid eruption, collapsing, horror restart. Authority dissolving permafrost explosion, exacerbating climate change. Tipping point, we're being devastated, loss in ecosystem, human lives. Before tipping points, climate change causes damage. Crisis already here, but it's not zero sum. Every bit of warming trend is worth the effort. Compare the consequences between 1.5 versus 2, preventing extra half degree could save 420 million from heat waves and 10.4 million from sea level rise, prevent 700,000 square miles of permafrost from thawing and reduce crop failures, higher ocean temperatures, cause major disruption in ecosystems, wildfires, droughts, floods, hurricanes, storm surges, algae blooms, invasive species, vector-borne disease, crop failure, economic hardship. We've gotten a taste of 1.5 would feel like. AFF climate models underestimate the risk. Spread 23 warming and have been fast more extreme positive feedbacks are not fully accounted for in models of the IPCC have a conservative even 1 degree Celsius risk triggering tipping points. Arctic warm 4 times faster and climate models underestimate the implication of permafrost emissions and feedback loops are not accounted for. Thermal maximum for further distances had been exceeded. Adaptation without mitigation fails. The world is warming too fast. Plummeting song. 22 the dangers that climate change are mountains are rapidly cut over the ability to adapt unless GHG emissions are reduced. Efforts are too incremental. Temperatures keep rising. The world face limits to how much it can adapt. Nations so slash also emissions more will suffer unavoidable loss. Even humans best efforts to adapt could falter rising sea exceed what nations can afford. The plan solves carbon tax reduces economy-wide emissions by 87% by 2050. Working action $24-40 per ton. CO2 rise at 5% each year on emissions across the economy. What is speed of GHG emissions reduction? Accelerate new tech deployment support innovation more than double emission reduction compared to short power 2050. But the U.S. economy trajectory to nearly meet its target 42% reduction by 2030, 87% reduction by 2050, no other option compared to the U.S. class. It incentivizes this massive shift towards low carbon tech and hard to decarbonize sectors. So 2020, the economy-wide carbon price would incentivize innovation employment of the low carbon tech, cheap, low carbon and technologies for industrial or ag limited their ability to reduce emissions prices uniquely capable of rising revenue that can be used to fund R&D where a cheap tech do exist. The price will deploy the amount of scale with cement. Renewables over natural gas. Shift solves the green paradox. About 18 vote over neighbor. Profiteering paradox makes sense, but no empirical evidence companies are pursuing such course more data products, more taxes. Peer companies see profitable alternatives. All investment to assert the shark pool. Known fossil fuels are going to become more expensive. Carbon tax was model Brazil show when taxes are announced. Divestment denominates the green paradox. It's char die, the inevitable transition dumps their links, but accelerating the shift avoids excessive costs, i.e. AA24 speeding it up. Clean tech improves the affordability advantage of clean technologies more cost competitive than conventional. Infused benefits of faster transition with filter and prices are less volatile than ore, providing more predictable costs. Right, 2035 electricity overtakes ore. The quick view transition more cost effective is if policymakers put off action today, we will end up paying more tomorrow. Border adjustments prevent leakage and leverage global reductions necessary to cement lasting decarbonization. Tampa et al. 2040 industry represents over 37% of global emissions. BC Solon can only target trade good, likely to be more successful when implemented domestic action adjustments ensure domestic emission reductions are not offset by increases in other countries, placing incentive on exports to minimize emissions to retain market share, incentivize innovation to cleaner production process. If a lot of diffuse beyond borders, this innovation channel could be most significant in emissions reduction potential. Revenue funds compliance costs. Mara Rusani bring 20 to a carbon tax would have a low administrative compliance costs and lower consumption taxes. Taxes raise a lot of revenue below the cost even if developing advanced ways to track foreign emissions could be difficult. The carbon tax could be less expensive from an administrative and compliance perspectives. Thus, the plan in the United States federal government should adopt a clean energy policy in the United States, including a carbon price of $40 per ton CO2, rising at 5% over inflation each year with a commensurate border adjustment. Advantage to trade. A wave of divergent U.S.-EU climate policies are forthcoming. Negotiations temporarily deferred protections application to 2026, leaving only a year before the transatlantic trade war multilateral meltdown June 24. The Senate EU strategy to capture system. The U.S. reflects a subsidy focused strategy after the year count negotiations. Biden announced a temporary hold of the CBM Section 232 tariffs in 2026, even only a year. Defining compromise to be was imperative to avoid trade, but also to prevent backtracking climate policies that could reverberate globally. Fortune, the transatlantic climate club could be the foundation for multilateral cooperation, fairly could accelerate global fragmentation of clean energy markets, resolve frequent cross-border trade wars. Once in 23 efforts to mitigate climate change, bringing governance and confidence clashes over climate restricting alliances and global trading system policies could result in more frequent cross-border trade wars between close allies against one another, widening fractures already fragile system of trade. The EU's free trade's last line of defense failure to compromise permanently weakens the WTO roads of fabric global trade modes and vital charge. Trying to the last big defender of the rules-based open trade. The EU is about to fall off the world's largest trading bloc. Gives up on free trade the entire global economy, but hurts as the outcome seems likely. The key trigger is not Chinese aggression by reforms emanated from Biden. The law was seen as a stop in the face of trade war with the US. It's in neither side's interest, but a response will be needed if the EU, one of the last big believers in free trade, throw in the towel, would not just undermine the global trade rule book and weaken the WTO. It would also send a key signal to other countries for get about the rules. Escalating trade wars, collapse, containment of existential threats like prolif, disease, tech, and triggers World War III. Oppenheimer 21 environmental events, health tech failures will define define our future, but structural forces impact capacity to powers to settle inevitable shocks and decoupling, reduce increasing polarization, cross-border conflict, weaken the institutions, norms, and reduce capacity to confront warming tech change to do what is and proliferate, increasing interaction, not producing the harmonization, perversion, and escalating trade disputes as measures gain traction to become clear to states that the global system tails escalating aggressive will end globalization and world suffering for excess savings will respond with the retrenchment of political effects will be damaging the views nationalism which contributes to conflict. Trade wars lead to World War III. Economic constraints on aggression are eroding trade wars by reducing interdependence that conceivable the current moment is here than the pre-1914. There are many hotspots Korea SES timeline where Kinley seems right. Protectionism is inevitable absent the plan establishing border adjustments avoids fragmentation through trade harmonization. O'Sullivan board off 24 pursuing net zero because the lack of fragmentation made trading more reasonable protective measures raise the cost of the transition. The U.S. had to strengthen its economic ties, border adjustments could be an antidote to fragmentation of the U.S. border reduce and inputs for the domestic tax and creating incentives for other nations to follow suit. The EU already adopted such a combination. Australia, Canada are concerning border measures, and the UK has announced a tariff implemented by 2027. The establishment of border mechanisms could create a climate club that encourages climate measures. Countries will choose to adapt rather than retaliate and work. Joining one together, the EU and US make up more than 40% of the global economy. The most attractive parts of retaliation will import access. BC as heralds a fundamental change to the global trading regime. Trade disputes will dissipate disputes through the WTO take years and are not likely to undermine adjustments. Retaliatory moves are no match for a permanent shift in trade rules benefits are too important, especially if the switch price is stable and inevitable countries will afford the liability by applying their own carbon fees. The plan solves by harmonizing U.S.-EU pricing policy encourages other countries to follow on COP23 to rise trade tensions between the U.S. and EU can undermine climate initiatives fair to align risks, stoking trade tensions, strong transatlantic partnerships and prerequisites between the global economy. The U.S. has failed to adopt national carbon price subsidies won't reduce emissions. The U.S. cannot pursue the EU approach without a national carbon price legislation to create U.S. carbon border adjustment, including domestic carbon price, would create a basis for a durable compromise with the EU pursuing compromise rather than conflict. Can create a powerful coalition that encourages low carbon industrial production around the globe, including in China and India, without seeking domestic advantages. Strong U.S.-EU alliance is an impact filter. Stokes 20. The U.S. and EU will face challenges that threaten life pandemic recession to climate change to climate China tech competition and security threats but these transcend borders. They cannot be dealt with alone. Relationship has weathered storm but past performance no assurance of future success in the face of existential challenges. Neither the US nor EU can act alone. We can set an example for the world, laying the foundation for broader cooperation to cope with global challenges. Is there something you would like as per usual? One sec. Only carbon pricing can influence the scale of innovation necessary to solve Warman, Van der Berg, and Budson 20. A CP is highly effective. No decision in the economy escapes its influence while salting the closure of all holes through which emissions leak. It better limits energy to carbon around than other instrument. Infinite efficient policies to less reduction for a given cost, lower incomes, unemployment, which will hamper stable political support. CP is critical. Innovation private investors are influenced by price expectation. Unlike other instruments, CP estimates among clean tech and cleaner runs carbon policy will remain weak if it's fragmented harmonization needed. Weaken free riding and international competitiveness concerns that hamper policies.
Yeah, it's rough in this room. I've just been bouncing back and forth between conference and Yost, and but that's okay.
Yeah, I actually had no problems earlier, but now maybe.
I feel like that spot on the table is cursed.
Yeah, that's where I was.
Alright, I think maybe I have at least some internet now.
Yep.
Oh, great. You're good?
Yeah.
Okay. The last part about leverage on global reductions, is that necessary condition of the plan that it has to solve global emissions reductions?
You're talking about Advantage 1?
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
Okay.
we made an argument for why every degree reduction in a degree matters, but more importantly, in able to solve the large-scale effects of warming, it requires cooperation with other countries.
Okay, great. The EU advantage, your protectionism now, evidence is like the WTO is about to collapse and the concept of free trade is structurally in danger. Where have you read evidence that the US cooperating with EU is enough to resolve that?
The Kaufman evidence says that the plan creates a durable compromises that signals support for international institutions like the WTO because it adheres to multilateral trade regulations.
So what is what is this solvency situation for trade wars? Is that like the WTO is able to effectively resolve it, or is that the US?
It's about the U.S. adhering to multilateral trade rules. We've read evidence that says that.
Who are the countries relevant in the trade war?
The U.S. and EU and other countries that are affected.
So you think that the U.S. and EU will attack each other?
No, it's that. Well, we made an argument for why the EU is the last defender of the WTO and the free trade regime in a world in which the EU gives up because we read predictive evidence that says that the EU would sort of slap tariffs onto the United States because of a lack of a carbon tax.
So you're like, okay.
So that would cause other countries to not believe in international institutions, which our evidence says, Oppenheimer says that creates the incentive to escalate risk.
Okay,
for
so
other
your
countries.
Oppenheimer card is like, it triggers World War III, and that's specifically because
Because protectionist policies create nationalist sentiment in other countries because it obviously affects their industries.
But the AFF solves protectionist policies between the U.S. and EU.
We're making a broader structural claim about why it shores up the free trading system broadly.
Okay, so is it that adversaries like China and Russia don't perceive WTO to be legitimate now? Is that your?
It's probably like developing countries too. More importantly.
Okay, the U.S.-EU alliance scenario. What exactly do you think causes extinction?
I think the evidence is like a structural claim that it's able to solve a couple of threats like climate change, recession, pandemic, China.
Okay.
It may not say extinction.
It starts the card with the U.S. and EU face this list of threats. Where have you read evidence that the U.S. and EU solve those and that those cause extinction?
Well, that card makes a solvency claim, but the second part of your question, our Jane evidence says that
performance is no assurance of future success.
Exactly. They face challenges, which proves that the alliance is not resilient but dependent on cooperation.
Okay, do you then have to win that the U.S. and EU cooperate with other countries or just the U.S.?
No, we just have to win that the U.S. and EU cooperate because they're a larger share of the global economy.
Okay. It's 5. You're up for advantage. 5, 2, 1. Yeah.
I'm good.
I'm going to take my sweater off. Kentucky, are you good?
I've got it. Okay. Just keep it.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay, Lauren, judges. Cool. Elections is that Harris wins our 1023 political strategies to certain Harris will win. Harris is said to find a reason GOP has been on a losing streak 2018, 2020, 2020. 2 abortions on the ballot. Harris is raised 1 billion to persuade swing voters and polling masterminds since he believes voters will reject the former president. Hard carbon pricing. Loses Harris the election rate between presidents are back to tax rate increase face serious political backlash and elections. Political climate facing carbon pricing when expanded to include coal and natural gas carbon pricing offer near certain political pain prices for fossil fuels are highly visible, illustrated by massive science institutions. These governments range of fossil fuels. Use creates a substantial constituencies. Product costs 24 states, Pennsylvania, have substantial cost. Social political base moves difficult to move. Trump win collapses alliances and escalates all hotspots nuclear war. war roads. 24-second choppers, do politically motivated, short comes to help on plot out of Iran, struggling nuclear program, excluding proxy war, as both Israel, top line, China was episode again, embracing Kim, able to no advanced nuclear programs, maximum pressure, fuel, humanitarian crisis fear, cargo, strongman, nationalism, great permission, structure for aggression, withdrawal, NATO, involved Putin, Kim, Russia, provocation, China is ready for invasion of Taiwan, Dip Cap, decide Biden is barely holding Israel back from torching the Middle East, leverage is working now, but must be sustained, Kylie, 1026, Washington managed to hold Israel back, and Yahoo may yet set fire to the whole region, there had been every time Israel was planning wide-ranging attacks against nuclear, military, and oil, the region would have been quickly aflame, but the Americans were ready to bring in there, bring the house down, Biden has been quick to issue statements saying the direct exchange should be overrun, work for weeks, so conduct a struck and a proportional response that happened to Iran, has plans for a back that would include a real also sleeper cells terror, ignite Al-Qaeda across the globe, Biden has said at the top, authorities are prepared for a brighter campaign, Netanyahu has been held back from a hannibal movement, the plan calls the domestic firestorm that trains off Joel's like Crash, 20 climate policy will face when heroes on climate issues like Biden's VC, Trump is immobilized against how competent Obama's turned out, control provided, the favorable context allows to not pass environmental orders, split Obama could have invested PC for prioritize the ACA international crisis, draw attention away from climate, Biden recognized partisan action could generate backlash, domestic fights, blogged by Biden down, distracted from diplomacy, Soling 24. Think preventing Israeli offensive is U.S. restraint out intentions requiring strong U.S. leadership to pursue as managed escalation. U.S. may have little PC to deal with foreign policy, might prioritize as political interests take operating interests over priority over international, as Obama did with leaving TPP to pass the ACA. Who is my bubble for within if Congress pulls the blanks on devils to force horse trading, World War III, and bioterror Othman. 1025 Israel and Iran implications for global stability, including a third World War, the U.S., Russia, and China risk escalation into a water conflict, cause proxy wars, conflict, and disrupt oil extremist groups, lead to terrorist attacks, failed training relations crisis. Escalation of larger conflict cannot be overlooked. Diplomacy must be prioritized to prevent deterioration. Without proactive engagement, may be a flashpoint for global conflict. Declining price contemplate the United States federal government should adopt an annually decreasing price of $150 per ton of CO2 with a commensurate border adjustment starting with the lowest cost available options, locks in dirty technology and undermines solvency. The counterplan results in aggressive early investments that drives down long-term cost through learning by doing and a green path, the Bennett scrub. 21, the cheapest agreement for success, make carbon lock and make high targets more specifically low, returning that the swift need to swiftly adjust sectors to inertia beyond center models learned by doing could radically change the views and possibilities models in the IPCC will run to that. Introduce innovation and understanding of carbon lock and suggest about the Bennett that is yet to be addressed in global IAM's pliabilities that applies to mitigation. This is achieved by greater upfront investment, a radically different profile. The initial effort is similar to requirements for driving a delivering parents with declining steadily with temporal interdependence or leaving reducing the cost later emissions. Savings induced by early action, several times larger than the initial cuts themselves. Expenditure early is sustained through for a few decades to drive innovation overcome inertia and break dependency. After that, the effort declines. The outcome is lower mitigation costs and damages. The traditional structure assumes a fixed payment cost are curve at all times. Overwhelming empirical evidence shows the energy system has inertia and path of Bennett inertia can fundamentally change the dynamics of optimal abatement, results in greater upfront investment and steadily declining emissions rather than deferred abatement. Early action, decisive action to overcome inertia and avoid lock-in. Starting high and declining is key to hedge against climate tipping points, delay risk catastrophes. Annual 19 low CO2 prices rising over time. A lot of limitations including climate risk and uncertainty. Climate is an asset pricing problem leads to fundamentally differing price paths. How mitigating climate risk prevents a hedge out leading to early high prices early on as uncertainties decline. Certain prices. The key addition is a line for catastrophic risk in the form of tipping points. Bad news is costly. Bad news late is worse precisely the inability to know what accounts for the insurance value of early mitigation or resolution of risk over the declining CO2 price. Tech progress makes mitigation cheaper over time. Allowing for multiple TPs exacerbates that as the patents the tail 5-year delay creates loss of $24 trillion. Is comparable to a severe depression. Declining price paths was the focus on near-term action. Large clouds of delay. The plan triggers the green paradox that accelerates warming. Sin 12 entire structure paths will change of resource under so that in the future they will exploit deposits before they will export new deposits and extract as soon as they can. Extracting earlier increase. Some more deposits will be burned earlier, reinforcing the GH effect. Announcing a future reduction speeds of global warming. Industrial policy contemplate the United States federal government should substantially increase its financial support for research, development, deployment, and commercialization of a portfolio of low and zero carbon technology supervised by regular nonpartisan review. Contemplate solves better by revolutionizing progress on low carbon tax table. 22 deep decarbonization requires a transformation of push to the tech frontier to build new industries, taxes, work with solutions to open a better theory of change. Warming is a problem that involves technological nature of the march over reconceiving industrial production investments and risky industrial policy, which is radically new solutions. CUEs think about using loan guarantees, Office of Clean Energy demonstration of funding from R4E. Airlines are selecting drop and replacements on liquid to allow new production to major industries, plastics, steel, air travel, electric power. For most GHG disruptive policy will be needed hydrogen onshore wind, networks of charges, vent, steel, production, nitrogen, fueling systems. Every industry needs a flexible policy. Governments have to look over the risk and governments are solution will emerge from costs of early movers that create industrial revolution sector by sector. They make a risky enough to join regular reviews from NGOs in the national economy. Simple gas UE is a good track record. Tax credits for hydrogen could encourage a disruptive shift. States contemplate that 50 states in relevant territories should adopt a carbon price of $40 per ton of CO2, rising 5% over inflation each year. Coordinate uniform implementation through the creation of a streamlined state carbon tax administration or SICTA program and adopt a formulary apportionment mechanism to incorporate the carbon intensity of imported goods and tax rates on domestic firms. SICTA harmonization that solves Kiska, Schultz, and Prom 17. Streamlined state carbon tax administration unifies simplified state carbon tax modeled on the student FX since 2000 developed by states multilateral agreement to harmonize carbon tax systems to harmonize tax systems to provides a research foundation harmonize state carbon tax governing bodies state legislators develop software to reduce the complexity of collections and audits requiring a single tax rate provide uniform definitions allowing industry seeks and understanding unified the system allow unilateral states to interact matching commitments to read broader investments interest in signaling and reducing emissions states can effectively tax carbon more superior 15 times the level of the playing field for zero emissions alternative states and housing can use revenue any way they wish states can betray the policy's viability to fund federal and international efforts leverage to achieve action abroad state innovations led to biggest federal changes the Europe Advantage 1 border adjustments fail containing leakage and decimate global developing economies cause global trade wars and undermine cooperation that's more effective at responding to climate change. Set it all 24 carbon contests both direct and indirect should be counted over this cross the challenges for data logistical management by other countries GC bandits ego carbon border tariff counter tariffs may be inevitable retaliation will lead to some global welfare losses to increase safe price emission domestic production will lead to an emissions rise overall it leads to deteriorating global trade the costs are borne by the poorest developing countries experience reduction in production due to the climate market show the gap between the developing and developed is widened and global genius and large export losses offset the CBM with reduced benefits by multiplied losses of global competition lead to a detrimental environment for trust making sustainable development costly it destroys China's economic seat. Carbon tariffs that influence China's export structure, leading to flat price fluctuations. Cost of exports to the U.S. will increase, demand drops, and the price will decline. Which cause a reduction in revenue. The decline will affect China's economy. Drop China's domestic income will contribute to a pronounced adverse effect. China collapse causes global war. Richard, 23, the collapse of China and America could negatively impact the world. China's growth is susceptible to collapse. The economy is centralized when their economic headwinds, political stability is threatened with large growing nuclear capability as well as other WMD instability is very bad. She is belligerent with Taiwan. The more the economy collapses, the more China will risk war. Algae can be ousted. Factions are could arise, creating a multi-sided civil war with nukes and WMDs. 2 interdependence tests to prevent wars. 21 trade can be conducted during conflict states for rational things. Trade is mutually beneficial and it makes sense for both sides to keep trading. The interdependence relies on the unity of the nations. How trade during war, but that's not how it works. Given the likelihood of trading in conflict that pushes not toward less war, but trade during war. Trade cannot be used for prevent war because we have too many incentives to trade during war. 4 trade is stable and growing but vulnerable. Salient. United States trade continue recovery in Q3 2024. Factors post rest volume began to pick up annualized rate of 2.7. Closely aligns with WTO's forecast trends show component indices are above trends. Suggest steady growth. 5 can't solve US EU alignment splits are irreconcilable. Jansen at all 23 level playing field and aluminum and sales extremely difficult to gas remain far apart. The EU money solve policy tools. The USA making for tariffs on China. US Common Club suggests subject to a zero baseline tariff. The EU proposing US permanently list section 232. EU rejected the proposal where the US allows members to set emission standards. The EU proposal leverage that will come to an end. Our position remains fundamentally incompatible. 6. The alliance impact is bogus and assist written by Trump and all it says is teamwork makes the dream work. Climate.
Wait, did you read this?
No. They read one for one.
Yeah.
Okay, climate. 1. Price signals cancel warming, non-cost barriers, lock in emissions, first move it all 20. Frame climate is a market value for us to appreciate the scope of the depth and interconnected tech for rice systems, models, lifestyles locked inside of cities, developed alongside automobile and tied with top regulations, socio-technical systems cannot be reduced to shifts in prices, transition to compensate for city planning, street developments, must undergo change current trajectories, EVA, little from BAU, even speed is $140 optimization, disallow to confront lock in or avoid dead end pass, long-lived carbon intensive infrastructure, natural gas, or ongoing incremental changes in sufficient systems or lock-ins, some cost and cultural conventions, 2. No existential climate impact and adaptation, solves SCIF at 24. Adaptation affordable because risks are not allowed to bring IPCC and ultra hot model program into actual ECS according to American could be 1 and 2 degrees Celsius despite worst days along IPCC. Reverse for the 21st century low confidence any change in ag and eco drought, fire storms, reversions, heat waves, air pollution, radiation, and climatic impact. Drivers alarm mistakes scenarios for unrealistic warming will be moderate at a slow rate compared to alternative records such as that based on contamination from non-climatic factors. GCMs grossly inadequate. Growing ever warming by season natural variability, rapid decarbonization, zero or unnecessary, no compelling of impending disaster. Any hazards can be addressed through adaptation. 3. No historical evidence of leakage. BTAs are unnecessary. Devon goes 24. No historical precedents for leakage. There are very little precedents to show the pricing lead to leakage and no agreed understanding of how water carbon adjustments prevent leakage. Empirical studies searching for leakage have limited success specifically for carbon pricing. Research has mostly found little impact on leakage. Reverse modeling analyses predict leakage under pricing, however, exhibits significant differences in estimations. 4. BTAs fail. IZARD at all 10 U.S. industry could relocate this leakage cost jobs while failing to reduce emissions, giving complications. VOS from their advantage can be realized they cannot all portions of beta flaws only raw materials is least effective. The majority of intensive imports are in finished products. That IZARD card is marked finished products.
You good?
Yep.
The declining price counter plan, how much does it decrease by?
Norm.
Probably a similar rate as the curve is, like 5%.
Well, so I guess how long does it take until the tax goes away?
You would have to do the math. Like, I don't know how many times you have to multiply 150
so
by
I guess
0.95.
Where do you think you read a card that says $40 is too low?
We have, like, you are correct that we have not read a 1NC card that says $40. We have read several cards that say we should start high, and the models that are cited in your evidence and IAM, like traditional integrated assessment models about the cost of carbon,
You think you read evidence that
Our-
cites models that assumes a $40 tax?
Our net benefit is not about the dollar amount, but about whether or not in the future the price will be higher or lower. Because like the link to the green paradox is like firms expect the price to get higher. Same with carbon locking.
So what's the incentive for companies to shift if they know it goes down in the future?
No.
No, like companies, because the cost is high, they don't like they have to pay the cost, so it's not like a choice.
Well, yeah, they know that they can incur the cost now, but then in the future, like, why wouldn't they just wait? What evidence do you think you have read that says that they would?
Because the counterplan imposes immediate costs. Like it doesn't like sure if they don't
And
abate, then they
can
just
you
have
read?
to pay $150
Can you read me?
per
Can you
ton,
read me a
which is
line
huge
from your
amount.
evidence that says that in a world in which it declines in the future, companies will no longer or would entirely
Our
shift?
evidence says that starting high is sufficient, and at the point at which it does decline, it has solved because firms have focused on the most transformative options first and not the lowest hanging fruit.
Okay. Consumers, like, where do you think you read evidence that says that consumers can afford? Like, okay, never mind. Status of the counterplans.
Conditional.
Conditional. Can you kick planks?
Yes.
Can you combine counterplans?
No.
Okay. The net benefit to the declining price counterplan.
Internal.
And then industrial policy.
Elections and account.
Okay, and I guess.
And the
wait.
the trade term.
The trade term.
Trade.
Okay. I guess the industrial policy counterplan. How does it not link to elections? You read a link evidence about
The rate
energy
cut is
policy.
carbon pricing. It says that it imposes costs on consumers that are extremely visible, and that voters penalize presidents during election cycles where they head back to tax increase.
I'm
The
gonna
counterplan does not impose costs on companies. It in fact gives them money.
We're gonna take the last 3 seconds.
I guess we kind of did that instead. Whatever. Did you?
Yeah.
A little bit. Well, we did so I could ask her if I had flicked anything up in 1 and C, and then she said no, and the answer was yes. She's like, whatever.
Wow. Airing the dirty laundry.
We're gonna press.
10.
or 9?
Is that Jacob again, or is that your iPad?
That's the stand.
Jacob.
Could I get the order is warming, trade. Sorry. Warming, trade, the industrial policy counterplan, states counterplan, decreasing price counterplan, elections DA, Israel DA, or DIPCAP DA.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's been deeply on my mind.
Yeah, I didn't really think about it until like a few minutes ago, and then I was like, oh no,
Well,
that's
if we're in the other debate, we're gonna propose it not happen. So I'm just gonna put that out there.
Truth was like, I wouldn't support you doing that, but I wouldn't not support you.
Yeah. We got a neither confirm nor deny situation.
Right. Yeah.
Everyone good?
Yeah.
All right. The first argument that when you see bots and evidence is a specific indictment talks about all the reasons why Rosenblum is wrong. For example, the carbon tax is the most efficient policy, which takes out that argument. The next argument was a skip out argument. It's based on natural variability, which has been discredited as Zygo 10. A skip out shows solar flares have influence on temperature. Tried to re-examine the data. New analysis revealed more evidence to support human-induced warming theory of solar origin does not exist. If one is proven false, the proponent will put another out of a hat. The strategy has been the strategy of skip out. The other warrant in the card is the IPCC says no extinction or spread. Evidence is an indict of this. It says that the IPCC underestimates the risk. The next argument was that there was no leakage. Yes, there is leakage. That was the whole reason that the EU developed a border adjustment in the first place. The last argument was that BTA's failed. The warrant is administrative cost. The 1AC Bray evidence answers this because revenue funds compliance. EU. One, trade is collapsing now. Protectionist policies are the rules of the road. The plan reinvigorates trade while protecting the climate. That's 1EC, O'Sullivan, and Bordoff. 2, no link. The F creates a level playing field. Palmer-Lew 2022 border adjustments, unlike tariffs or subsidies, are paired and equal adjustments that create a level tax playing field for domestic and overseas competition. Trade effects are often confused with those of a tariff or subsidy, and China is expanding their carbon market to compensate global cement staff. 24, China plans to expand carbon trading market to encompass the cement industry. Initiative aims to prepare for the EU's impending carbon border adjustment expansion will integrate into even more sectors. They also are 1EC work evidence says that countries will choose to follow onto the plan rather than retaliate because access to the U.S. market is too important, and no lash out. Mirdos 21 lash out is inconsistent with political realities. Long-standing calculation. The surest way to aggravate disability would be military action for Xi. The way to undermine his ambitions would be a war at the expense of prosperity with make support no web. He is reckless as in COVID. Chinese focus on diplomacy. Historically, China reduced risk during turmoil. Mao and Deng pursued a resolution when challenges such as Great Leap Forward protests in '89, the collapse of the Soviet Union. Their next argument was that interdependence is not prevent war. This is untrue. Our Oppenheimer evidence says that the economic cost restraint. The next argument was that trade is stable but is going to become vulnerable. That is our argument. The next argument was that there are irresolvable differences. Every difference that it lists are reasons that our 1AC Kaufman evidence assumes and says that the plan will be, quote, a durable compromise on. The last argument was that the Stokes evidence is just teamwork. Our evidence is that a strong U.S. alliance enables cooperation over those issues because the economies are so large and they have such wide geopolitical access. That is why they need to cooperate. The industrial policy counterplan. 1 perm do both. 2, the counterplan can't solve warming. Javon's paradox. The counterplan is the status quo. Only pricing reduces demand. Conway. 24, Javon's paradox is troubling. Fossil fuel companies invoke it as an excuse. In some cases, efficiency gains are so great our appetite cannot negate them. Consuming more doesn't always offset improvements. Every pathway for combating climate change assumes demand falls. The solution is obvious. Governments must constrain use through taxes. Global carbon tax would be key. B scope. Only carbon pricing can influence the scale of innovation necessary to solve warming. The counterplan is inefficient. Harmonization internationally is key. Only the plan does that. That's Vandenberg and Botson. When you see evidence, C free riding subsidies. Go to good faith actors that transition inevitably. Only the app targets 30 production. Marshall 24 sometimes. A stick is the most appropriate taxing. Raises the cost of energy, encouraging conservation. Also substitution, subsidizing lowers the cost of energy, discouraging conservation. Consumers don't buy too much and won't cut back on fossil fuels, but the tax subsidies don't discriminate based on efficiency. Given how much fossil power remains, that's inefficient, and that's inefficient. Taxes rise in proportion. Subsidies aid people who would do the right thing without encouragement. This is the free rider problem. And 3, it can't solve trade. The EU hates subsidies. That's the Jane evidence, and there's no like. Did they read this? The net benefit stuff?
No.
Okay. States counterplan. Or actually, industrial policy counterplan links to the net benefit because it's perceived as a wide-ranging climate policy. States counterplan. 1, perm do both. It shields the link. 2, perm do the counterplan. 3, it links to the net benefit because Walz has to sign it because he's the governor of Minnesota. 4, the counterplan is illegal. Koken. 20, the facilitation of trade was a motivating purpose for the replacing the articles of confederation. The Commerce Clause combined with the Import-Export Clause with vital ingredients to the new constitution left unchecked. States would interfere and it would lead to disastrous effects. The Commerce Clause with the Import-Export and Duties and Import Clause include a non-interference principle. Also casts regulatory authority over commerce, and the federal government, the Dormant Foreign Commerce Clause, prohibits states from displacing the federal government's policy-making role in foreign trade. If any one state can interfere with foreign trade, it will disincentivize foreign nations from trading rogue internal actors, individual states, and a forfeit signal to foreign nations that want to cooperate but fear making commitments against the possibility of rogue states. 5, formulary portion still violates the FCC if it implicates U.S. foreign affairs. McCann and Gillis. 9, the court addressed whether California's formulary portion was impermissible because it impaired federal uniformity. Court determined a state tax will violate if it implicates foreign policy. When a state tax implicates foreign policy, that one must be less than the court held. The most obvious implication is the threat of state taxing might offend trading partners in 6 states. Is a voting issue. It's not real world uniformity. Unfairly removes the deficit and it pushes the debate to the fringe. Fiating illegal stuff magnifies the impact because it's anti-educational. 7, I'm going to skip that one. 8, counterplans without specific solvency advocates are a voting issue. Causes proliferation of unrealistic and uncompetitive proposals. The lack of comparative literature and trend clash in the name of NEG flex. Now the decreasing price counterplan. 1, perm do both. 2, perm do the counterplan. 3, the plan's mechanism is key. They do not have comparative evidence that quantifies the success of their plan in relation to the app. 4, only those reduction of 4, the app is key to achieve net zero by 2050. Hallahan 24, CO2 emissions must be brought under control or 0 by 2050 or will not be. My carbon tax would incentivize the search for ways to cut emissions. According to estimates by economists, the $40 carbon tax would induce investments in abatement methods that would keep emissions well below 2030 target levels. This would be a good start towards net zero by 2050. A necessary condition to keep the global temperatures increased to 2 degrees Celsius. And 5, the paradox is absent even under ideal conditions. A cool 21, with biofuel learning by doing my increased production of credit oil less only would accentuate the paradox of a pre-mandate surge is sufficient with OPEC as a perfect cartel paradox is unobserved. No, the extraction costs are affects our prevalence in any way. Resilience of future demand makes production more valuable. We are unaware of any papers that elucidate the impact, even though smaller base gives the strong incentive to hasten extraction. We still fail to observe. Mark the card at observe, and the counterplan does not solve the AF1. Producers will wait or shift abroad until the tax goes to 0. Lasting decarbonization is key. The counterplan just delays the inevitable. 2, sufficiency. There's no evidence to distinguish 150 from 40. All of our evidence is $40 is Goldilocks since it enables a smooth transition, and all of their evidence assumes a low tax, which we are not. 3, it doesn't solve innovation. It likely results in stranded assets because the immediate shift is too large. True, given the lack of support for the transition, companies would have to pay super high costs and afford to transition, which doubles the risk. Elections. 1, the DA starts at 50%. Polls are all within the margin of error, which means they have no directional predictive value. Klein 10, 13, ignore the polls to know who will win. They can't tell you that errors are systematically a favor one candidate in 16 and 20 polls. Undercount Trump swing states are tight. Neither candidate is leading by more than 2 points. Imagine the polls perform better. That would be consistent with Harris winning, also consistent with Trump winning. And 2, no impact. Trump's first term. Thumbs. 3, no NATO withdrawal. Kelly 23. Congress approved legislation prevent any president from withdrawing from NATO without Congress signed by Biden. Underscores commitment to NATO target of Trump and no pro-lip even without U.S. security commitments. Green 18 decades of pro-lip forecast proved embarrassingly wrong. Instead, the number remains small. The majority never came close. Security concerns influences diffuse and complex and may not be prolific. Contrast history of conventional disputes strongly impacts development. Results mean states seek weapons for particular security, deterring not competition and general fixation on security result in neglect of important domestic constraints and exaggerated propensity to proliferate overall undermines promises complaints about dominoes and probability that insecurity will spawn spirals. Commitments are diminished in usefulness as an anti-prolif measure. And 4, Trump wins. Now I'm inserting the chart. The Economist 10, 25, 5. The link is thumbed. Harris is already viewed as pro-energy, proven by the IRA and Build Back Better. Their link evidence is from 2018 and obviously does does not assume the current election cycle. 6, Trump can't sustain an argument about the plan. Ponder 913, executing required from Trump both message discipline and facts. Both tall orders is going to keep insisting that Harris is terrible without being able to explain. 7, no vote switching Israel. 9, partisans won't decide the election as moderate voters who are tuned out and spread across battleground states. Voters will not be sitting down to watch Trump and Harris battle over tax policy. We focus far more on rhetoric than policies. And 8, no link. Harris won't get attached to the plan. The Israel DA. 1, no unique link to the planned election outcome will impact U.S. policy. Landler 1028, Israel's retaliatory strike came just 10 days before the election, and that appears to be in dead heat. If Trump wins, analysts said Israel could take more aggressive action against Iran, such as targeting energy or nuclear facilities without a halt to the war in Gaza, and some hint of a path of a two-state solution for Palestinians. Saudi Arabia would be unlikely to move in Israel's direction under Harris. The U.S. would be more likely to pursue an integrated approach addressing Israel-Palestinian problems as well as Israel's relation neighbors, but Biden's inability to make such progress is a bleak omen. 2, no internal link. The U.S. influence is limited at best. Landler 1028, Israel is dictating against the U.S. The U.S. are relatively the wingman. This is a seminal shift now as Israel unleashes attacks against its enemies. Biden finds its influence is severely limited. Efforts like the American-led negotiations for a ceasefire with Hamas and Gaza have failed to produce a breakthrough. The U.S. has yet to propose a comprehensive plan that would pull the Middle East back from a region-wide war, nor does it have much influence on Netanyahu, who has ramped up the conflict with Hezbollah and Iran and continued the military campaign in Gaza despite having killed the Hamas leader. Israel's escalated the conflict without any plan for what comes after. You have a disconnect where the junior partner in the alliance has the grander vision of the region and the senior partner is left trying to respond to events. 3, no internal link. Biden can walk and chew gum. We have diplomats. Baker 24, even in the world of presidential multitasking. July 21st, July 21 turns out to have been a whipsaw Sunday for Biden at 12:09. He picked up the phone to talk with Slovenia to seal a multinational prisoner swap. Just 97 minutes later, he posted a letter abandoning his bid for re-election. And 6, no escalation spire. 10:27, Israel's strike appears to fit with the pattern of controlled escalation rather than representing a decisive break. The U.S. are clearly opposed beyond abilities to strike blows against them. Jerusalem will be dependent on American forward strikes. Several sizes as larger than anything related to Lebanon. And Gaza strikes on oil avoided because the impact on economies. Mark at economies.
Okay. Are you good?
Yep.
Declining price counterplan. You said that the counterplan is too expensive, so it strands assets.
Yeah.
Arguably, that is our solvency argument. What is the impact to that?
We said, Drew, do you want to
That
talk
it
about
becomes too costly to invest in renewables because in a world in which they have to not only invest in a new sector but also incur the cost of the existing production, obviously becomes way too expensive to transition.
Wait, so your claim is, what? Why does investing in renewables get more expensive?
Well, it's because they have to incur the cost. It's not like a flip of the switch or like a snap. It's like companies have to gradually divest into the renewable sector, which is why we have read evidence that says that $40 is the Goldilocks because it strikes that
What
balance.
evidence substantiates too high bad?
What evidence substantiates too high bad? I think that we've read evidence that said our price is good and that increasing is good. Then we've
Right,
made...
but you need cards about your deficit. Like, you can't just read a card again that says, like, the plan. Well, actually, that brings me to a different question, which is, this $40 good card you read in the 2EC is like, we need a carbon price, and then it's like, a $40 tax would be a good start toward net zero by 2050. Where does this say high is bad? It says the carbon tax would be helpful but not sufficient. It's like one of the
It says that a $40
sections.
carbon tax would induce investment in abatement methods, which is similar, which is kind of like the warrant that you have addressed on the counterplan that said the AFF would not induce sufficient abatement. This evidence says that the plan does do that and does it sufficiently and well.
Well, okay, sure. What is the impact to getting to net zero by 2050 versus not?
Our evidence indicates that that is a key tipping point.
Okay, key tipping point. Gotcha. China. So I want to talk about the case. This card you have read that says China is expanding its carbon trading market to encompass the cement industry.
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
So
Why does this
your
make
evidence
different
indicates
than
that China would challenge the border adjustment and start wars because they would be upset about it based
said
on.
that it devastates their economy, which is different from all of the backlash.
Well, then
that
this argument also responds to that because it would not devastate their economy if they have internal carbon pricing at home
not
because
really,
they would not be double taxed.
The EU CBAM is very limited. It's just like steel, aluminum, cement,
I think that
maybe a couple other things.
this proves that China rather than just like sitting around and letting their imports be taxed would be proactive and would expand their carbon market to other areas so that they are not their imports are not taxed at the border.
That makes sense to me. What is your claim for that is not expensive, given that you have said on the counterplan that a renewable shift is expensive?
Because if China were to do an internal price, then they would get to keep the revenue, which would just cycle back through the economy.
Where does this card say they'll respond with a carbon price?
Well, a carbon market would be similar in that regard in the sense that they would not get taxed twice.
Okay.
But if they adopt, this is our 1AC work evidence that says countries would have the incentive to do this because they would like to keep their own revenue.
So China follows on with their own carbon tax?
Yes.
For sure. 10.
didn't say conditionality, right? I don't.
No, I don't think I did.
Weight principle? I didn't see tasks. Like weight being the somewhat. Yeah, we like to set up a federal or federally administered something for like space on the federal layer.
CCS is good.
Yeah. You can learn it. Just like ball stuff. Yeah.
Kind of unreasonable.
Yeah, expected.
Did you read the 2C7 on states?
Which one was that?
Only federal standardization.
Oh, no, I skipped that one.
Okay, 810.
Sure. What'd you stop at? 810.
I'd pay for it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that sufficient. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I have like 30 seconds before they are about there. What happened? I saw like the docs, but
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is just like, how much does the app fit to say the plan does when like it really doesn't say anything in the plan. And you know, like I think McCaffrey's thing took a very long detour and like stuff about the D of and like what D applies and what doesn't apply. Like I got really like get that granular about it, and I just thought it was a little bigger and that like you all got to say a little bit more about the plan and like the other people who's probably gonna say the plan. Like he just basically used the solvency because of plan big and stuff, which I kind of did.
we've been kind of having a back and forth about that.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what to do.
Yeah.
What's the T of this meeting?
Yeah, the Gauss effect. Or not Gauss, Iran. All in that kind of same area, but
Okay.
Luis.
What you got next after this?
You mean like,
Dartmouth.
yeah, mission next one.
See what we can offer.
Yeah. Yes.
It's so deep, right?
Like it's, yeah.
Just keep it at 140.
Yeah.
Oh.
It is kind of chilly.
Wait, I
It is. It's not as chilly as the room I was jumping in
Actually, even better.
octas.
Oh, yes.
That was
Yeah.
just
Same.
absolutely miserable.
It was really cold the whole time. They like cranked on the heat.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's exactly what
Yeah,
happened.
and it was like 100 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all like stripping down. Whoa.
I mean, I would have been doing that anyways, but.
I took off my jacket, you took off your sweatshirt.
Okay.
Okay, it's set. And then the order is the state's counter plan, trade advantage, climate advantage.
You said, say that one more time, sorry.
The state's counter plan, trade advantage, climate advantage. Everyone,
One sec.
let me
Just
just open it up.
saving.
yeah. Yeah? Okay. dip cap because it forces Biden to lose his focus on the Israel-Iran escalation. Now the only escalation now they didn't have a shields argument, so no need to use the arguments to the purpose of continuing the plan alone. Duplication causes preemption. Segment 15. Express preemption provision. Congress intended to preempt state law, state authority conflicts with federal authorities, and Congress unlikely to develop cap maturity. Purpose to not conflict. 3. That links more to dip cap because Biden would have to explain why he is duplicating with the state's 2 permutation to the counterpoint severance to resolutions specified federal government. Reject the team argumentative and consistency of rights, fairness, and class 2AC. 3 was linked to net benefit. Count 1 shields net benefit because it doesn't require Biden to spend energy on a carbon tax. The link to net benefit argument was about Tim Walz signing, which is exclusive to elections. No need to use the arguments to see for illegal fiat. We are kicking the formula apportionment plank, which proves a formula apportionment plank proves that it's not illegal. It's a reason to reject the argument. 2AC 5 formula apportionment violate. It's irrelevant, but we do solve the impact to why BCAs are key. Framing issues that 2AC did not read an impact to why BCAs are necessary for solving the affirmative. So any new articulation will be new, but the counterpoint does solve one. It solves internationally. It causes tech diffusion for 24 clean energy policy extended beyond jurisdiction may continue available over clean energy in other states. Build political support for their actions. Successful energy face about alpha place brings down costs for others. Cable news is under the 10th that are accelerate the transition of other countries to competition between countries. Expand the impact outward speed policy continue to provide peer-to-peer exchange and all which means that our rate has lower costs. Circle policies and other policies about industrial like policies. 2. Subnational collaboration shapes US-EU relations. COR 23 COR and LCMR commitment to collaborate over principles development for global change generation global challenges. The general research contribute to transatlantic partnership and SCL being areas of collaboration between democracy, rule of law, joint research, trade, and development. Discussing how subnational affairs contribute to overall transatlantic relationship. 3, especially with the EU, they're a federated entity that understands the power of collective government negotiation. 4, CBAM explicitly considers subnational policies. ESPA, L22, commissions allow for other country policy to be accounted for, including national subnational person credited in CBAM, and also 4, they have dropped follow-on from the 1AC. No new 2AC arguments. The Morse evidence is tagged to say federal follow-on proof of concept means that the counterpoint demonstrates the viability and effectiveness, which causes the federal government to do carbon tax, but not the border carbon adjustment because it's not fielded by the state. So that wouldn't be proven. That there would be no proof of concept for that. So it doesn't link to the net benefit. 2AC 5, 2AC 6 theory. Uniformity safety law is good. 1. Neg ground states are a key functional limit on a huge topic with small apps. 2. Negation theory. The role of neg is to test the F from every angle. Uniformity is key to test federal because it eliminates confounding variables that's most predictable, which outweighs with the guys prep. 4. No offense against federal jurisdiction deficits like military diplomacy and public lands. 4. Yes, real world is host of lit about carbon tax harmonization. Our solvency advocate says that states should unify the carbon tax system with a quote single tax rate. That's the case in Schultz evidence. 5. Reject the argument. Not the team 2AC 8 with solvency advocate theory. Reject the argument. We may not have had a solvency advocate for formulary apportionment, but we do for the carbon tax part, which is the first 1NC card. 2AC. The last evidence was about BPAs, which we are impact trying. The trade advantage. 1. Collapse of China outweighs the counter. The CCP will lash out in order to maintain political legitimacy and control strife. Could split the state will cause a nuclear civil war. Outweighs on magnitude. They have an enormous arsenal that's white shirt. 2. Lash out goes global rock. 16. Local responsible by CCP will solve. We will see China antagonize neighbors of China. Hostile to Taiwan, Japan, India, and South Korea. Contract US and destructive wars from war. Global scale increase. 3. Turns the case. Cooperation is better than PTAs at reducing climate change. Really. And Zhao 23. Pending with China technically tech collaboration turning into next countries of the vital planet. Basic climate change will probably handle collaboration, clean tech, and dry carbon reduction. Real trust the floor under deterioration framed as the battleground trade resistance. Will disrupt supply chains torpedo the climate agenda worldwide. 2AC. 1 was protectionism. Now this does not answer the state of the Chinese economy, which is our uniqueness argument. It is not that globalization is high now, but that China does not have to pay for carbon, and their economy is extremely carbon intensive. China's economy is specifically doing well, but it's at an inflection point. Green exports and green manufacture are key. Green goal 627. China's growth has been unparalleled. Output per person increased to 1,000% because so down growth and carbon level for the global economy. New obviously requires includes green tech for the green transition. China's essential green. China's energy accounted for 40% of expansion. China's economy will rebound now, but a strong export economy is key. Included 9. After downturn, China's poised for a turnaround. Global and so pointing to strong export with the recent storage could change activity to show us so June, August, August, expect growth to pick up their major export momentum remains strong with a 7% year-over-year increase with those recent increasing China poverty sector could get a much needed boost. Actually scratch the card I read before that 2AC2 with no link. That is no link. That is wrong. This evidence just says it levels the playing field for U.S. manufacturers and international manufacturers. That doesn't mean that it doesn't destroy Chinese economy. 1. PTAs will destroy China dependent on exports to restore its economic growth. The F freezes them out by limiting their price competitiveness, which flattens domestic income increase a pronounced adverse effect on recovery. That's the junk evidence inserted. For reference, 2. The impact of link is large, result in China being priced out of their largest market. Meow 24. Carbon tariffs are implemented. Trade will be impacted. Interest rates will face cyclical and survival products will rise. We in the original place advantage of reducing export volume. Tariffs mean the closure of the export market. China's exports to U.S. China's largest export market. Products imported have high energy consumption with U.S. implicit carbon tariff. The result will be that China loses market share in the U.S. which drops the market. U.S. markets and industrial embrace manufacturing will be impacted. 3. Comprehensive studies prove Bao et al. 13. Studies have included BTs to be independent domestic countries much to reduce emissions leakage reductions was modest. China's that rapidly growing country will definitely increase emissions. The question is whether BTs lead China to emit less. The study aims to analyze the impacts using the cursive type ICG model, the most popular modeling tool to assess energy policies. The impacts of China's economy will be larger. Each production sector China will have to pay additional carbon costs for commodities exported. China's export prices defense will be influenced by BTA's impacts of China's missions are very small factors attributed to decrease in price of energy, which will stimulate use. The reduction in export prices by the whole economy price decrease central profits will be reduced. Domestic income will be reduced, and demand will be decreased. Procurement central texture as well as energy for the core technology will be more productive for the environment. 3 was China's market is adapting. Adaptation is our argument because adapting is costly, but there's no Chinese cap and trade now. It's toothless and does not cover most of the economies. Svoboda 24. China's market covers only electricity is not yet expanded into specific quality liquidated ETS until absolute ceiling allowances are allocated free charge. Allowances are cheap and 10 times less. EU's design has major impacts on success of reducing emissions. reduces emissions. 4 follow-on. Follow-on is our argument for why it would be costly for China if they do adopt decarbonization. It's still terrible for the economy, and it will be answered on the case. 5 no lash out. The defense is about how she is responsible. That is our argument because CCP plus the military to take control of the government, which proves that she will not escalate now. But if you will, which answers their impacts about China on the advantage, but not ours. The defense on the trade advantage. There is no trade or interdependence does not prevent war. Empirics are NEG and highly interdependent trading partners continue to trade during war. That's the one in the evidence. And Greenberg 21. Conventional wisdom such as trade is the first casualty for the empirical markets such as otherwise war. This always has trade between enemy belligerents, bring continue trade with enemy India, Pakistan, Yugoslavia, and Croatia challenges interdependence. Remember that theory trade is severed in war which in some instances to war. However, states trade with enemies during war. The more interdependent two economies are, the greater the incentives for wartime trade is unlikely to deter war. Trade is also stable now. Globalization is probably sustainable, including China. The 2EC had no warrants to answer this argument, but our evidence is that trade is statistically high now and exports are increasing as per OECD data and globalization is sustainable. Sector 24. COVID is driving retreat. The data does not back it up. Even though governments have adopted policies of their own resistance, the economy is still evolving to become more or less globalized and dependent on Chinese supply chain surge and Chinese accelerate. There's also less than capital flows that means the decline results from specific changes in tax regulations. There's no impact of strong US-EU alliance. They still haven't articulated how it causes extinction. You should reject laundry list impacts. They don't have a specific scenario for escalation because it allows for 2EC clarification of negative after read impact defense to every single threat listed in the 1EC. Climate. 1NC1 price signals fail. One is capital locking. Carbon intensive infrastructure like natural gas plants have long lifetimes and persist even in places where the tax. The CC had no answer to this. They just said, quote, the tax is efficient, which is not a warrant, it is just a claim. Only a $1,000 tax would have a chance of overcoming it. The impact is 82 times the U.S.'s current emissions. NATO 16, locking due to Texas emit CO2 long of infrastructure which associated with undershot power plants, vehicles, industrial, commercial for emit 496 CO2 historical, but does consider emissions increase at 4% per year. Low carbon tax is not economically favorable until costs are substantially unlikely to happen during lifetime. Associated for elements for providing zero efficiency power plants. Lifetime more than 50 years in conventional vehicles command the market require carbon price greater than $1,000 or $1,000 to demand lock-in. City design and mobility norms lock in consumption by travel and buildings are designed to require intensive temperature regulation. That's Rosenboom 3 empirics prove. Sweden's tax was $140 and barely deviated from business as usual emissions, which answers their solvency cards on the price on the start high counter plan. And what is the 4 BCA's fail. One is that other countries will not model. 1, the EU BCA approves. China, India, and Indonesia and Thailand have all called it discriminatory. 2, they publicly refused to adopt domestic taxes in response. Kamari and Okiri 23. India declined to accept EU taxes on carbon industry, not practical for developing economy, leaving this even as unfair, detrimental. China, South Korea, and South Africa and India oppose the CMA. EU suggests India could implement its own greening. See what until our costs within global society of Europe. There's no plan to tax carbon. Deadlock operations is trade. 3, they're bringing their complaints to the WTO. Kumar 18. India plans to protest EU's tax on import from South Africa and other countries than the WTO measures constitute arbitrary, unjustifiable discrimination. India had to file a complaint. India and China are among several countries that aired over concerns over the tax. They also for that is key to solving warming. China and India are necessary. Borenstein 23. World pumped 1% more carbon because of China, or 1% more carbon because of China. India looks like we will overdue. China and India are suited. Emissions would have dropped. Rest of the world went down by 490 million metric tons. And they also dropped the resource for shelving war in the first BTA's bad card. Firms can shift intensive exports to other countries and least intensive goods to the U.S. Portfolios are heterogeneous, so firms have flexibility. That's what is the evidence too. That's possible even for large regions. EU BCA proves Tema at L24 effectiveness of actually no, scratch that argument. Okay, whatever.
Scratch all of resource
Scratch,
reshuffling?
yes, all of resource reshuffling. Sorry.
Can we get the cards that you read about price signaling on the top of the warming advantage? I don't think they're
Oh,
in
did I not?
the doc.
Okay, I would. So that's I'll just send this to you.
I just wanted to clarify, there was one of the cards, you said to scratch one of the cards on the trade advantage, and I wasn't sure which one
Okay,
it was.
that was the Fangold card, the first unique.
The first unique card, okay.
Sorry.
Got it. No, you're good. I wasn't sure if it was the first one or the second one or what the deal was.
I just unilaterally scratched the first one and hoped that was right.
Yes,
I
okay,
wasn't gonna
well,
ask.
I'm glad that was.
Why don't I just scratch the 2 and see?
Yeah.
It's really
Okay, that is sent. My bad for not including that.
Are you good?
Yes.
Alright, the state's counterplan, just to be totally clear, the trade turn is now a net benefit to the state's counterplan.
Yeah.
Okay. was not a net benefit going into the debate.
No, you didn't ask about it. It was.
Okay, well, sure. The trade advantage, you've read evidence on advantage 1 that says that, it says a bunch of stuff about, Europe's border adjustment. Why is the U.S. export market key and not the EU's?
Well, that wasn't a choosy argument, but also all our link evidence says that the U.S. is a huge consumer and the largest consumer of China's export market. So, and like the 2NC link card is like a study on what would happen if the U.S.
Which
adopted
card?
The BOW.
Which card says the U.S. is the key exporter?
Which card says that the U.S. is the key
That's
exporter?
Also, the 1NC Zhong evidence says the cost of exports to the U.S. will increase demand in the USA drops, and then it goes on to say that is important for China's exports. And then also the Meow evidence that I read, which is about how the U.S. is, quote, China's largest exporter.
The Meow evidence says that, China is aware of how important the U.S. market is to them. Why would China not just, maybe make their carbon market, real and actually have teeth so that they could keep the revenue to rebuild their economy?
Well, that's our link argument, that decarbonization is costly for China because they're so emissions intensive right now, which is the BOW evidence.
Why is it costly if they keep their own revenue?
Because it's costly for firms to have to adjust. Sure, the Chinese government is collecting their revenue, but that doesn't change that it would drastically decrease domestic production.
So, China, the Chinese government is just gonna, sit there and be like, oh no, our economy is collapsing. We're not gonna do anything about it.
China is forced to do so because of the BCA.
Okay, sure.
This also assumes that China can respond perfectly to the economic costs of the AFF and just, zero out the balance sheet, which I don't think is right.
Okay, sure. The argument that you've read about China's cap and trade being toothless is from January of this year, several months before they've adjusted their carbon market to account for Europe's incoming border adjustment. Why does this apply? How does this assume changes that are happening in the status quo?
I guess you could make that argument, but our evidence says that the scope of China's carbon market is insufficient to accommodate the plan because it only covers electricity. The EU's ETS is also power sector specific, so that doesn't really change it. And then also allowances are free of charge. Your evidence doesn't say that they change the allowance prices.
Alright, sure. I guess I'm still confused at why China adopting an internal carbon price.
Yeah, and your thing is just it's planning to encompass the cement industry. That doesn't really
I'm
change
just
the
confused.
scope or
I guess I'm
severity of the
confused about where
challenge.
the warrant of them adopting a real carbon price in their own economy and keeping the revenue would collapse their economy.
Because our evidence says that it would be costly for them to force firms to adjust. Sure, they keep the revenue, but that doesn't still not impose costs on firms.
Okay. I'm sending. Whoa, just catching my computer is spinning down. What I'm trying to. It is the industrial policy counterplan. I guess. The declining counterplan. Elections.
Sorry, could you say that one more time?
Yeah, industrial policy. Declining price. Elections step cap. Kentucky.
Yep.
Judges good. Okay.
Industrial policy concede the permutation just as a competition. Declining policy counterplan concede the permutation just as a competition. The card that they read about net zero says that the carbon price is quote insufficient. It is one header up from where they cut the sort of bottom paragraph, which means that the plan can't solve. And they said in cross section was a key tipping point. The elections I concede pro-left defense and NATO defense. I will answer. You need this on the other page. Subcap. One, Israel, Iran escalation outweighs Israel. Just struck Iran, but carefully modulated targets to preserve an escalation. Off-ramp going further, literally sets the Middle East on fire. Draws in global superpowers to global direct military competition. That's Kylie and Oathman 2. War and pro-left each independently outweigh on magnitude. They're the greatest threat to humanity. Mohammed 1025. Extra conflicts get us into World War III, the greatest land of mankind will go war, break out battles coordinated in multiple countries, unless we might be shocked when bad things happen, we can't take the chances to resolve then we have to get a resolve of it wants to get upon mother's will, and then it's a matter of time before these going off from major cities. 3, they drop the ground with a shell through unconventional means, including nuclear terror that strains international relations, that's Kylie, and within that, catalyzes global nuclear war. Johnson 21, then a new non-state nukes, trigger total catalytic war between nukes, state nation will be set up on troop receptions, spark accidental exchange, dirty bombs, create multifaceted escalation between US, China, Russia, and India, Pakistan, no code direct calling, miscalculate, generate preemption. 4, escalation makes global climate diplomacy impossible, so it's zeros both advantages, and group 10, take 23. Ever since just climate change, continent widening, iron, conflict in the Middle East, our plans to fracture our divided world, race, president, direct reasons to wars. Instead of climate change, finding times our countries to secure oil and gas rather than transitioning makes the next negotiations complicated to which our global agreement on anything, including climate fracturing, multilateralism, gas prices, eroding water support for renewable energy, rich countries would find it harder to ship. 2EC1 is the Trump argument. 1, framing issue is not always on time frame. The escalation can happen between now and January, even if escalation is inevitable in January. That matters because you only die once. 2, Harris wins now. Experts agree across why from the elections is that our evidence says James Carville, who is a skilled political strategist and analyzes empirical and qualitative transfer for that over polls, which capture snapshot opinions. That's Vermont. 3, reject polls are statistical. 10, noise silver 1023. Or they favor Harris. Harris could be polls, polls, 5 4 points, Tories, something conservatives losing, polls are winning, models facing decision-wise, about non-representative data. Polls are find a missing low, Trump assumptions that favor him are an overcall, with the recalled voters. People say they voted for the winner, that could rise polls, polls against Harris, 20 errors were because of COVID, pollsters correcting, overdoing it, pollsters are hurting. Small error could produce a comfortable victory. Polling firms are pilloried on social media when they publish outlier, most heard toward consensus matching instincts. 4, Lichtman is negative, he is historically correct. Lubin, 1024, Lichtman correctly predicted 9 out of 10 elections, the method for forecasting accurately is the key to make the most will win over based on 160 years of precedent. Method looks at 13 factors: health, econ, scandal, and rest foreign policy predictions. Withstood the test of time. 5, funding. Harris raised $1 billion, which surpasses Trump. That's Vermont. Yeah. And Trump is not one Iran. He favors family relations for Iran. 1018, Trump's talking about Iran saying he does not want to get over really well. Trump will want to see Iran to be very successful. Trump is maintaining relations on not looking bad, be bad to Iran. No outline. His goal is a settlement. 1017, Trump will have regime change Iran saying he wants the country to succeed. Washington must come to an agreement with Iran in a departure. Okay. 2EC2 is Timcap fails. 1, active management is the only thing between Israel and Armageddon. They made full plans based on the Hannibal Doctrine to light the regional fire, but they were only pulled back because Biden convinced them this round wasn't worth it. Absent mediation, the conflict would have spiraled and drawn in great powers. That's Oathman and Kylie. 2, existing restraint is because of Biden's continuing effective finesse. WAPO editorial board 1027. Diminishing tensions will depend on how the U.S. uses influence on Israel. Is precisely Biden's advantage of this event that gives grounds for optimism. The net effect is that Iran will struggle to resume something in its facility state attack, but expose Israel heated about Biden's counsel not to trigger general war. The relationship is not totally broken despite deep disagreements. Biden has himself to the political risk before this when he wondered whether the U.S. had any leverage. 3, it is unquestionably because of Biden's steward and 1027. Biden sent an urgent message to Breithinger and former officials explained the U.S. saw 2 ways to influence Israel. They avoided Iran's nuclear and energy infrastructure. U.S. pressure was not taken critically. Important Israeli decision-making would have been far different had Biden not taken measures to push Israel. They were ready to do something, and he was pushing for it to be proportional. Now was not the time. Well, it's impossible to predict Biden worked hard to create an opportunity for breaking the cycle of counterattacks. 4, our argument does not have to be Biden ends the war in Gaza, nor that he creates a successful peace settlement, just that he restrains a broader strike on Iran. 5, it doesn't fail. All of our unique cards of tribute, temper strikes, U.S. pressure, the target of strike proves their listening. So 1026, the U.S. man pressuring Israel to formulate his retalk carefully. Our Biden's challenge was to be persuaded that anything too large can instigate a rapid time as far as Biden effect ability to influence has been limited. So Biden's prediction has been articulated unusually publicly, privately, intense diplomacy has been ongoing. Blinken is just a part of that was pressure on Israel. The president worked with Israel to encourage a response was targeted, and that is precisely what transpired. 2EC3 is no trade-off. 1, drop the link. Their card just says that Biden can make a phone call and also post on Instagram in the same day. Not can do a foreign policy and domestic policy. The plan caused an enormous political firestorm. Biden specifically trained market-based comment measures from the IRA because he knew that he couldn't get them past. The plan is perceived as going back to the well on a closed chapter of his presidency. Trump ginned up panic over the concept of climate change, destroying backlash, and they dropped our link on elections and lefties backlash to market measures because they fear commodification. That's still second. Prakash. 2, domestic policy battles do trade off, which is the stuff that I did above. 3, the diplomatic team is extremely constrained. I'm going to comment 23. Always believe in policy physics at any time. There's only physics around policy energy in these systems. If you're working on one thing, you're spending on some other things that you don't decision making and want to capital lifting is not by a small group of Secretary of State and other Secretary and a national security vice president. Those people need sleep and need a day off, and their time and energy is not infinitely elastic. They're placing all of that into Arab Israeli peace of 3, or drop down to 2EC4, which is impact defense. 1, come on. So 2EC Spire 1027. Evidence suggests Israeli operation was at the lower end of Israel's capabilities. Jerusalem would be dependent on American support. It would be exaggerated to suggest Washington has a veto. Still, strikes remain a distance away on the escalation ladder. Strikes on oil facilities were avoided. Again, U.S. Counsel played a significant role in determining the decision in this area. War quickly goes nuclear. Lopez. 2, war quickly goes nuclear. Lopez. 20. 3, Iran make official response of Israel is going to the U.S. will use carriers to attack Iran. These can be taken out by a massive rate of 5% unless nuclear Holocaust went. Iran has cornered Russia, will come completing a full-blown proxy war beyond imagination. Retro response. Maybe nuclear trying to take the opportunity to launch on one war to weaken the U.S. fear has been a destroyer, but prophecies may become real once a reality. Once fear evolves into anger, rapidly intensifying World War III tenfold in size 3. Their economics arguments are wrong because if Israel has carried out a massive strike on Iran's nuclear and oil facilities, that sort of draws in every other great power who wants to stabilize the region, but does so by escalating. And at the point where sort of constraints have checked, Israel has already burned down Iran, and Iran has gotten a nuke within a couple of days, which means that it cannot sort of solve back up to dip cap fails. Every increment of pressure is key. Lazarov, 922. We believe there is still time and space for diplomacy. We don't want a second world war. Israel's actions to spark a regional war. Their region is on the brink of a catastrophe. All efforts should be made to urgently pursuing diplomatic activity. All efforts should focus on urgently on finding a diplomatic activity.
609.
Yep.
What was the thing they said in counterpoint? Maybe they kicked out the counterpoint. So, it says, and it's just our fault. Just do it.
stop at 103?
Sure. Literally, I forgot. I'm reading cards. Let me see. They're sent.
Oh my god, he's just like you.
Sorry for delaying you.
Oh, you did. I like the key smash file name.
Yeah.
That's very real.
I like name all my documents with that, and like it keeps saying there's duplicates because I do the exact same keyword smashing.
That's good.
Warming advantage. Trade advantage. States counterplan. Div cap descent.
The docs have 2 headers, that's correct.
Does that have 2 headers?
It does. It has Israel beside impact and no leverage.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, can you re-give the order?
Advantage 1, advantage 2, states, div cap.
Sorry, give me 2 seconds. There we go. I'm good whenever you are. I don't want to give it off.
Okay.
Wait, sorry, 1 second.
You're up for it?
Find an advantage file.
I feel like you should like maybe take some of the like food stuff off.
Yeah,
Like, what
I've
if
been accumulating
You really have been. It seems like you've been accumulating
The
a lot.
empty Starbucks could probably go.
Yeah.
Is this it?
Oh, yes, it is.
It was secretly your other photo in a different
I
brand.
labeled it gibberish, so maybe it's fine. Okay, I'm good.
Okay.
We have our castle of trash. Okay.
Yes.
Case always they drop the impact warming causes the station the conversion of system vulnerability surpass tipping points burns the planet inhibits our ability to adapt probability comes confers against other theories like real world applicability. They say counterattacks is wrong fails that's wrong. Our evidence says that imposes high enough costs that producers must internalize it and alters consumer behavior because it incentivizes a shift to renewables and discourages fossil consumption. Independently, BCA solves because it ensures that other countries will model the plan in order to access the U.S. market. They will have an economic incentive which results in global follow-on lock-in. Is wrong. They've dropped a transition. It's happening now and fossil fuels are not entrenched, but it's just a question of how fast it happens. The evidence about a 1,000 tax not being sufficient is just one model, but our evidence is better because it assumes an economy-wide tax which says this is sufficient and solve it and encourages other countries to follow on, which was explained above. Sweden is not a good example because they had a whole bunch of exemptions and also was not as carbon intensive as the U.S. economy. BCAs do solve other countries would not retaliate but rather cooperate because the U.S. market is so huge. It's not. Their evidence says that there's challenges now in the WTO because those things are discriminatory. The plan is not because they create an equal playing field between the domestic tax and the import tax. So there's no reason why it would backlash all their evidence regards to carbon tariffs, which is not the plan. The only car that names drops China and India is one C Coffin. It says they're likely to follow on. India, Sweden, 24, dealing with CBM, started working on the capital which will be fighting in 2026. The thing on the counter plan and the one is wrong. Our evidence says that $40 alone reduces nearly all emissions, but the rest is resolved by global follow on the trade advantage. At the top, there's no impact to the turn. China won't lash out. Xi is constrained domestically. The military is not going to lash out. It's not unique because of domestic constraints, which should have thumped this at no turns case. Cooperation is inevitable because one of see Rourke says they choose to cooperate, which was above now. Trade is collapsing now. States like EU, Australia, Canada will adopt border adjustments, which non-unique to their turns. That's Sullivan evidence. EU thumps. They have not read a card that says that plan that the United States is the only market that matters for Chinese economy. EU is much larger because it encompasses a whole bunch of 26 countries, and they have no evidence that the U.S. will supposedly collapse China, given all their link evidence is about general studies. And by the way, there's an existing trade war on China now. Gordon and McBride 24, I'll send this card out later. Biden also new trade tariffs on Chinese imports, which means China would not backlash to the plan. And we read evidence that says they would cooperate. Interdependence does solve war because the lack of it rewrote economic constraints on aggression. Also says they drop that it results in a lack of cooperation because other countries will turn inwards rather than outwards, which is necessary to solve the slew of existential threats like proliferation. It also solves the impact of the dip cap discount because it means in a world in which we have strong alliances and trade, it reduces the economic, it reduces the incentive to go to war. Now trade sustainable is not descriptive. It is not descriptive. Not only our evidence says that it's predictive and says that it will collapse because of the trade wars and the lack of the U.S. domestic tax. The U.S.-EU impact might not have extinction in it, but a launching list still means that the alliance can solve the impact. Now the states counterplan permutation do both shields because Biden will deflect the blame to the states and wouldn't have to invest any capital into the plan. Now the theory argument, I'm not sure what it was. Rejected argument, not team is arbitrary. Anyways, now they kicked out of the BCA. That is more important than everything else because it results in leakage, which means it does not solve advantage one because companies will shift abroad because they know that if they shift abroad and they can sell back to the United States, they won't be taxed, which is why BCA is necessary. Otherwise, it results in more emissions. Now it also doesn't solve the trade advantage because obviously their impact turned in it. Now no federal follow-on. They've read links to politics and elections prove that the plan would obviously not be accepted federally, and there's no evidence that says that this current environment is conducive to that. Now, climate policy must eliminate leakage short term 24 nationally. This current policy will have a meaningful impact on reducing global emissions only if they're accompanied by mechanisms that eliminate carbon leakage amounts, reduce the incentive offshore production, the loophole undoes all reductions post at all 24 emission tax given the key incentive offshore 24 are more emissions intensive than purely domestic firms. The emissions shift to an extent that always its own reduction become environmentally damaging because of transboundary pollution. Israel disad at the top. I'm finishing 2 ceasefire. No, that everybody Iran response unlike the regime outlets downplaying the impact of Iran is thinking about collecting this borderline the lines. It feels comfortable. No impact of war is constrained because it's in neither side's interest. The recent strike was controlled, but it won't escalate. The recut gives to nothing. It says U.S. counters were able to de-escalate, which proves no link because their evidence is not about Biden. No impact. One and are kicked out of the elections and by conceding no proliferation, which means they cannot go to war because they're not going to get a nuclear bomb. No takebacks. This is one and our mistake now. No war. Lee 1015 Biden believes that what has one assurances from Israel that will not hit Iranian nuclear or says adamantly sending defense battery soldiers ease some concerns. No U.S. strong McKenzie at all 24 Biden told the U.S. would not participate in counteroffensive against Iran. Blinken and also spoke to your counterparts stressing the need to avoid escalation and importance of a coordinated diplomatic response. No war. Russellman 24 Iran can't afford a war. Just a new president takes over the problems including the real economy. Iranians still hold memories of the last extended conflict and for decades. Iran has proved to harry rebels through foreign militias. Hezbollah is more to lose than escalate. Hezbollah watch Israel demolish Gaza, something Israel vowed to replicate is provoked. Case solves the disad. A strong alliance contains the risk because it means that other countries like Russia and China would not get involved because of economic incentives, which is the reason why trade must come first. No turns case solvency is not dependent on the Middle East, and their evidence doesn't say the plan is insufficient to solve in a world in which a crisis. Now there's no link to the disad. It's trash. It's like Biden picking up the phone and doing a prisoner swap the day after dropping out of the election. Proves there's no trade-off because DipCat is not a one-to-one correlation whether or not he focuses on the domestic, and there's a whole bunch of other thumpers too. Like it's an election cycle. There are policies that Biden has to focus. Biden is fundraising and campaigning for Harris domestically, which would obviously trade off with his ability to leverage the capital with the dip cap against Israel. Now empirics prove that you can walk and chew gun at the same time. Brian 10 and 20 years pursued hostile negotiations person in Israel. The trade ceasefire for prisoners. Nothing happened. You can hand me more cards if you want. Then Netanyahu only cares about short-term political survival. Excellent 10-4 view. The U.S. is strong in the region. The reason is Biden has made it clear that it has chosen not to dictate in terms of its Middle East policy has allowed Netanyahu to do so. Israel conducted an airstrike. The U.S. has received no warning. This situation repeated itself when Israel escalated in Lebanon. Biden seems to think that this report will somehow trump Netanyahu's well-documented pathology. Netanyahu cares only about his near-term political interests. There's no link to the disad. No part of the one he requires Biden to invest political capital into the plan because a tax is administered by Congress. Yeah, that's fine.
8, 10.
sorry.
Just come on, like,
There were
My bad, my bad.
And then Jared, you read one about
Trade.
one now.
Yeah, I just sent it.
And also something about India.
Yeah, I just sent that. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, okay, I think that's all. Right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. 7:30 is Yeah. Okay, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I did. I read.
price if you won that.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know anything about the economy, and that did not help in any capacity.
Didn't help us either.
Okay. It's the trade advantage, states counterpay, disad, finance. Okay.
1 second.
CCP collapse outweighs that affirmative has not read an applicable piece of defense to this, and throughout the entire debate, but collapse lash out causes nuclear war because internal strife will split the state and cause nuclear civil war. They drop the one in our evidence that says it causes great power draw, and China will be increasingly hostile to allies like Vietnam, or to U.S. allies like Vietnam, Taiwan, Japan, India, and South Korea, which drags in the U.S. Both of them have nuclear weapons, which escalates and outweighs the climate advantage on time frame because it is the only thing that causes a direct nuclear war, and climate, there's no saying when the Earth will become unlivable or hot house. It's also the only thing that escalates. It is also circumvents rationality, which checks their war impacts on the second advantage because deterrence prevents direct retaliation by the CCP, and the takeover means that military leaders will be controlling the CCP, which prevents negotiation and economic interdependence, which they have said are the things that check war. It outweighs decarbonization as well on time frame because China is key to solving emissions, but our link evidence proves that they will collapse in the interim. Now there's no domestic constraints. This is our argument about how Xi is restrained, but not when he's ousted for terribly managing the economy. The terribly managing the economy, your evidence says that when the economy collapses, it is more likely that China will risk war because various factions arise that are uniquely aggressive, which proves that there are no checks. China is not cooperating now. The cap and trade is extremely weak. The SPOTA evidence from 2024 says that their market only covers electricity, but even worse is that their ETS has no ceiling, which means that allowances are distributed free of charge based on current emissions intensity, so they don't have to adapt at all. They're also super cheap. They're 7 to 8 euros, which is 10 times less than the EU's. They are not adjusting to the EU to less than the EU. Then the way they articulated this was that they are adjusting to EU CBM. EU CBM dumps is a new argument, not in the 2EC. Strike it off your flow. No new winner arguments because we went for this because they fumbled the DA in the 2EC, but EU CBM isn't big enough to matter to their economy range. And finally, 24. So you will have consequences of trade bars with China affects our region. China faces a high admiral rates which lead to a fall in exports. However, exchange rate depreciation boosts exports of non-CBM products, but expansion to the US would make it much worse. Dead and goals 2024. CBM have a lot about China trade with the EU, but criticize mechanism including the WTO as a unilateral as a trade barrier with expansion. China's exposure increased by huge margins, lower measures from the other countries, including the US, may apply exposure for exports to border adjustments. Trade collapse now does not take out uniqueness for the DA because it is specific to Chinese exports being high. China's exports are healthy. Now. They are up 3,000%, but rely on a strong U.S. export market. Increasing export prices decreases demand, which hurts the economy. It doesn't matter whether China is engaged in globalization or whether there is protectionism now, because it is about whether or not China's export economy is thriving. Yes, our evidence is specific to China. The 2NC Miao and Lao evidence are both specific to China. It does a study on what the impact of U.S. BCA would be on China's economy. It says that because China is a rapidly developing country that relies on coal-intense emissions and are one of the largest sources of carbon emissions, it develops a recursive dynamic computable model study and says that each production sector would suffer enormously because of reductions in export prices, and the domestic income would be reduced, demand would be decreased, and it would be apocalyptic for the economy. They have zero evidence about China, which means specificity is NEG. Biden tariffs don't dump. This was a new one-year argument. Strike it off your flow, but just in case you evaluate it, Biden tariffs were predictable and limited. Long 24. Given this book of skipping skill new tariffs, there's no need to worry about trade war. Tariffs have been modest, targeting key industries for trade. In the case of trade, you get cautious approach. I draw specific concerns about promoting a trade war, but again, it's going to intentions that look at the impact. Chinese exports and policy eclipse the probable impact against targeting sectors and administrative and economic interests. With broader trade dynamics avoids severe retaliation. Interdependence cannot solve our impact when it didn't solve lash out, because lash out is key to survival, which outweighs economic interest. And 2, China would not be interdependent with other economies if a recession occurs, and the military ousty and interdependence alone is not an impact. There's no correlation between interdependence and war. Countries trade during war and they stop trading during peace. Most robust data sets prove there's no causal link. That's the Merman 1-hour response by just restating what interdependence is. Our evidence examines if it is empirically true. Index the quote conventional wisdom. Trade was high when World War I broke out, which is the most significant example of interstate competence and intimacy. Greenberg evidence 2, there's no impact uniqueness. The 1NC Salahin evidence is the most recent card and says that trade is surging now and is aligned with WTO forecast. They have no raw data for their impact. 2NC sensors and answers their structural claim. The article title says deglobalization is a myth, and past fears about collapsing trade that arose post-COVID. The world became more globalized. That proves that trade is resilient even if there's some climate conflict or recovered from a deadly pandemic. Proves that trade system can adapt. The 1-year evidence says that trade is down now, which is just wrong. Obviously, this doesn't answer China because it's about China's specific ability to adapt. Trade broadly is resilient because if Chinese exports decrease and other countries can increase exports to the U.S., but that only proves that China's recession would occur. U.S. EU impact is just wrong. They've conceded that their in the one area that quote their alliance card does not say extinction, which means that they can't articulate an impact to it or evidence or impact currently outweighs on time frame. The state's counterpoint. The state's counterpoint solves warming. It solves warming and trade. They have farming issues. You should evaluate all the deficits insufficient. They have not impacted efficiency. They have not impacted out not covering international emissions or specifically leakage being key to warming. But all their one is the evidence about how national emissions reductions are key and how unilateral reduction can cause wide-scale renewable integration. The U.S. has a huge chunk of innovations, which means the U.S. has a huge chunk of innovations, which means it sufficiently staves off warming. They say a permutation do both or the blame argument or whatever. That is wrong. It links to the BTA's argument because the only Shields argument was about Biden blame. We're not going for dip cap, but it does include a BTA which causes backlash. BCA's of key to leakage. This argument is zero because they drop that the counterpoint solves by causing international diffusion, which would make renewables cost competitive and prevent incentives for leakage. The winner did not even breathe on this argument, so no new winner argument is true. They dropped the states solve the second advantage, even if the leakage does occur because the states steward U.S.-EU cooperation. They haven't made an argument for why BCAs are key to negotiations, but there are evidences that national carbon price is key, and CBAM explicitly considers subnational pricing policies. Yeah. Okay. Oh, should I go to the decide concede defense? Climate. There's no charge given that the counterpoint is a try, which means that the status quo is not unsustainable. But the countries don't cooperate with BCAs. Their evidence is just wrong. One is that their evidence is just wrong. Both China and India have brought claims to the WTO. They're trying to resist, even as they are establishing carbon pricing measures, because they oppose they are retaliating because they oppose the costly measures of the BCA. But two is that it's not being not discriminatory and applying it to the U.S. as well doesn't solve because the EU CBAM wasn't discriminatory either.
103.
Too bad you're on this panel and not on our panel, Bricker.
What on there?
They dropped your ass badge.
Allegedly. Allegedly.
I wouldn't vote on it. But this guy over here is just instant check-in on new F bad.
I didn't even think about it. It was like, didn't just shows passive use resistance. And the only people who are mad about that. I mean, there will be some irony in this. If you win,
It will be very ironic. I don't expect that. Like, I don't expect that to be the thing that determines this case. It's more so that if it was you, you'd be good.
maybe.
Warming trade states. Jared, can I get this stand?
Yeah, that's one of those things that, like, it's gotta be double dropped for
Sorry, you said warring trade states?
Yes. They have not extended any impact defense to the advantage or a reason why the plan does not solve it, which means all we have to win is a small risk that pricing that the plan solves because the trade DA is nonsense. The impact to the advantage is huge. It causes extinction, which is uncontested. So I don't have to do much explanation here. But the counter plan certainly does not solve the gap because it does not have a mechanism to prevent leakage, which is the core AFF argument. The trade advantage. EU CBAM thumps, it's not a new argument. Our entire trade advantage story is that trade wars are coming now and they will tube the global economy. The Dartmouth 2 in our cards are terrible. First is the Breckenridge evidence. Their evidence says that EU CBAMs will not have any effects on China. It's in fact muted because China faces high ad valorem duty rates and that China can export non-CBAM products. We'll concede it. It means that they can export more clean technology and that avoids the CBAM because it's not fossil fuels intensive. This is damning for them because they have read the evidence for a second. The two in our dev evidence evidence says that the CBAM has no impact, but it's because they have low exposure given the EU's existing rate. But then it goes on to say that the EU will likely raise it, and then it goes on to say that the UK, Canada, and Japan will all adopt one and amplify the exposure of China's economy, which is our argument. The 2NR shot themselves in the foot. This is game over because not having any evidence to answer our thumper zeroes the case because it means that their turn is non-unique. But it's try or die for the AF. They've dropped that those incoming CBAMs will be protectionist because they lack a domestic price, which severely disadvantages countries like China because it means that countries like the UK, US, and Japan, and India will tax China's imports, but then won't tax their domestic industry, which screws over China. The rest of the DA is utter nonsense. You should frame it through the protectionism uniqueness claim that we made in our O'Sullivan and Bordoff evidence in the 1EC that says that trade protectionism is increasing. Now the countries are turning inwards because they are worried that they are not going to be able to address their domestic climate goals because of the lack of border adjustments. They're worried that trying to address climate will make them uncompetitive in the global market, which means that China would not be able to, China soon will not be able to export anywhere at all because all countries will cut off access to them. Now, our evidence is super predictive and says other countries, including India and China, would rather follow onto the plan than get priced out of the market, which is the internal link to their scenario. So just on logic alone, we are miles ahead. Thinking about this logically, would China rather have their whole economy collapse because they don't have access to markets, which is going to happen with or without the AF, or would they rather just expand their carbon market to price it domestically and collect the revenue themselves so they can use it in ways that would avoid the impacts of the DA? The 2NR arguments about this is just that China's current market is bad. That does not assume the signal of the plan. Our argument is that even if China's market is bad, they will change it. They will change it to assume the signal of the AF. Their argument there was that it would be too costly for industries, but China can collect their own revenue so they can do what they want with it, and they would do things, they would logically do things that are like, that would strengthen their economy. Our cement staff evidence says that they are already expanding their markets to do something like this in the face of the EU CBAM, and there are so many thumpers. The Section 232 tariffs are huge. It makes it so that China's imports into the U.S. are already super costly. Their only argument was that they were predictable. I don't understand the warrant for that. I read the card. It really does not make sense to me. I'm gonna leave it at that. It doesn't make sense. It was not explained. Now, the framing issue is when looking through the cards at the end of the debate, Kentucky will have the only card that describes how China will react to the plan explicitly. When AC Kaufman says China will follow on to access the U.S. market, and it'll be net beneficial for them. The risk of the impact is incredibly low, given all of these factors, which means that warming outweighs because the risk of that is incredibly high. States counterclaim. The state's counterplan does not solve the warming advantage. It does not do a BCA. It does not prevent leakage. They said that this was new, but the entire thesis of the 1AC was that border adjustments are necessary to prevent leakage. Otherwise companies will just offshore emissions to other countries that do not have regulations, which undoes all the reductions that could be achieved with the domestic carbon price. When the 2NC kicked the plank, logically the AF obviously got new answers because it became a new counterplan that was then a pick out of the AF. So, the BCA is key. It's necessary to prevent leakage and ensure global follow-on. Otherwise, the globe free rides the plan since they have no economic incentive, to which means the 2NR warrant about signaling is irrelevant. The 1AR has read two fantastic cards about this. It says why leakage is bad. The 2NR just drops them, which means you should have a low threshold for voting on it. Those cards say that the emissions that come from leakage are even more damaging than leakage that comes from lack of a carbon tax. It causes emissions to raise by 100% when they move to different countries to continue to pollute, and are sometimes even more emissions intensive than they would be in the U.S. because those countries often do not have the same environmentally stringent regulations. Their only answer to this was global follow-on, but every single 1AC card and every single card that we've extended to answer the trade DA says that the only incentive for follow-on is a market incentive where countries feel a fear that they will get priced out of the market, which means this is illogical. There is no way that this could solve. Now it does not solve the trade turn, and it links more. All my explanation above means that China will be disadvantaged by inevitable tariffs unless a BCA is enacted with it. Any other offense is resolved by the permutation. Real simply, warming outweighs the DA on probability. It is much more likely to happen. It outweighs the DA on time frame, especially given that the impact is not likely to happen. Even if China's economy did start collapsing, it would take a very long time for them to go to collapse, to lash out, to all of the other steps of the impact. Every degree of warming matters.